Well, good morning, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. And obviously, it's not January 15th, 2026. And this podcast isn't going to be all things Alberta independence. This is actually going to be with my friend Tajana talking about stuff that may or may not get us thrown in jail or fined, but who cares? And as you can see, I'm not in my normal little studio that I built in my house because my friend Jasper from Holland is still here and he's sleeping in my studio. So I'm actually in the Let's Talk Alberta bus, which I just picked up from the graphics shop yesterday. So you are going to see an absolutely amazing rolling billboard all over Alberta, and you're going to see it very soon. So you can look forward to that. Anyway, we're a little late today, so I'm going to not do my normal rambling, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of why I wanted to do this podcast after being offline for so long. It's been quite a while since I've done a sit-down podcast like this. You've seen me at Let's Talk Alberta events advocating for the conversation around Alberta's future, but you haven't seen me sitting down talking about some of the things that are on my mind. And there's been a lot of stuff.
Camera. I think you should definitely get a Ring camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on that. Just so you know, folks, I'm doing this podcast from actually the parking lot of the Whistle Stop where the Let's Talk Alberta tour bus is parked, and I'm tethered to my phone, so it should be decent. If we have some problems with video or audio, just be patient. I'm sure it will come back eventually, but it seems like everything is going well. That's a perfect segue. You talking about the short bus. I watched some videos coming out of the United States where a very prominent figure in the health administration, or he used to be, Dr. Anthony Fauci, was being questioned during a congressional hearing, I guess. And I think he answered every single question with, on the advice of my lawyer, I declined to answer any questions for the Fifth Amendment or something like that. So that got me thinking, well, there were people like you, specifically, who were speaking out against what was going on back then with the COVID stuff and saying, like, this guy's lying, this isn't real, none of the stuff that's happening is what we're supposed to be doing. And people basically said, oh, you're just retarded, you belong on the short bus, you should be canceled, you shouldn't be allowed to talk. And now here we are a few years later, and it's like actually starting to be exposed. What do you think about that?
You know, it's always been an interesting thing, like my entire life, if you stick to your guns and you stick to the truth, you're going to be mocked. And then it takes years for the truth to actually like trickle through all of the lies and the layer of lies that they've built. And when you start putting those things together for people, usually they get mad because it kind of, breaks the spell that they were under, and it also hurts people's egos. And so I've kind of come to know that eventually things will reveal themselves in truth. And so over the years, I've just kind of learned to take the abuse and make fun of all of the haters, and then just throw it back in their faces. And then the minute, the truth comes out, I do a nice little video of I told you so with, my verbal 2 middle fingers in the air. And it feels great because I get to trigger them all over again. And this time there's actual substance to what I'm saying. I mean, there was always substance to what I was saying, but most of the people don't really understand what I was saying back then because they were so filled with fear and paranoia and all of like the psyop that was put in their, brains. So it's interesting, but it's always the same. You got to stick to your guns and don't let people like wave you or throw you off of like, your own moral grounds. And eventually it will pay off, as it always does. The truth always comes to light.
And the truth sets you free. Or in Canada, the truth will get you thrown in jail, but that's another conversation. So now with some of the stuff coming out, and some of these prominent voices, specifically in the United States, speaking up about, basically legitimizing the things that we were saying in 2020 and 2021, 2022 and that, legitimizing the millions of people that went to Ottawa to say, hey, this isn't right, we need to be doing something different. Here's what really concerns me. And this kind of goes with the Alberta political scene as well. Most people are ignoring it. They're like, oh, well, that's in the past. Oh, whatever. They just made mistakes. Millions of people died. Millions of people lost their jobs and income, whatever. It's not a big deal. 100,000 businesses in Alberta lost an average of $180,000 each, whatever. It's in the past. And they're just like, we're going camping. We're going boating. We're not going to get involved. And in the case of what's going on in Alberta right now with the conversation around independence, Let's Talk Alberta, which is an organization I founded to have town halls about this, specifically talking to people who oppose Alberta independence. We do flyer campaigns. And so there's people in Red Deer and Black Falls and Lacombe all over Alberta putting flyers in people's mailboxes. And the flyers basically saying, hey, some of the things you're being told may not be right. We should talk about this because we have an important question coming up. And I had somebody take the time to send me an email saying, don't tell your minions to not put garbage in my mailbox. And so, of course, I replied saying, well, we don't have any minions. I think you're looking for Gru. His email is baldandbeautiful@grumail.com. And then they responded again, and they're like, no, I'm talking about this. Like they thought I was serious, right? No, I'm talking about this. Don't put your junk mail in here. I don't want it. And I said, well, we don't put junk mail. We put things that are important for Albertans to talk about so we can have this conversation prior to being asked this question. And they responded to the email like 4 or 5 times back and forth. And I'm thinking, man, if you had just read the information and then said, oh, hey, you're wrong or whatever, or right or whatever, it would have taken you half the time. But instead, you spent like an hour out of your day responding to emails talking about why you don't want to talk to me. And this is happening all over the place. People are saying, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. And yet Albertans are going to face a question on self-determination in October. So it's not the same thing as the COVID stuff, but the same bury my head in the sand, just watch hockey, whatever, and ignore that. Are you seeing kind of the same thing down there?
No, I'm actually seeing completely the opposite. And I know I had that issue in Canada as well when we were talking about anything like COVID, 15-minute cities, the World Economic Forum overtaking our governments, the policies that they're bringing in. People would rather stick their head in their sand and pretend like everything's okay. And then they think it's just going to play out like properly, right? Which means you're then being led by the World Economic Forum. And it's the same thing with the Alberta Independent. They just don't want to talk. They don't even want you to bring the information to them because it bothers them, because then they actually have to use their brains to think. Down here, I either find people totally don't care about politics and they genuinely just don't care, or they're very, very involved and they're very knowledgeable. And the weird part is I found down here that Democrats, like our liberals, are actually a little bit more sensible. We've got crazies down here as well, but they're actually a lot more sensible when you talk to them one-on-one, and they're willing to actually listen and have a discussion, more so than I've noticed in Canada, even like the Conservatives or the Liberals, or they say that they're non-political.
Well, Canadians are just too polite, and they're polite to a fault, right? Oh, well, let's just leave it in the past. Well, no, there's people that did some horrible things and they need to be held accountable, and that just, it needs to happen. Here's a great example of how the conversation goes a lot of the times. This person here is more concerned with the number of people that went to Ottawa than the broader conversation about why they went and what we're seeing now. And it's interesting that the name is Bot. I wonder if that's an accident or on purpose. But Connie says it was not millions of people that went to Ottawa on the convoy. It was much less. Well, it was millions of people that participated. And I can tell you that because I drove across Canada and I watched it. There were millions of people that stood up and participated in that, whether or not they made it to Ottawa, whatever. But I was there. I was at that stage for 2 weeks. And I can tell you that there was millions of people, at least, that came through Ottawa to participate in that. But that's not the point. The point is that something happened in Canada that a whole bunch of people, whatever split hairs about the number you want, stood up against what the government was doing, and the government froze their bank accounts. And now, a few years later, we're saying, those people were actually right, and then no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I've noticed Connie, I don't know if she's just a geriatric, but I've noticed people like Connie, they can't think anything through. So instead of arguing the actual point and arguing, what they do is they try and split little details to try and diminish what you're saying. And then they pick on certain words so that, you stray from like the actual point that you're making. And unfortunately, you can't have an actual intelligent conversation with people like Connie, because she'll just focus on the little things that don't matter. And that's how they kind of like sway you from actually having a discussion that is based in reality, on facts, and, you know, discussions that lead to a solution. And I've noticed that a lot in Canada, where I'll say something and people will be like, well, no, like they did this and Trump did this. And I'm like, we're not talking about Trump, dude. Like, we're talking about this subject right now. But it's because they don't have the intellect to have a proper discussion. So they just throw whatever emotional facts they have out there. And then that kind of brings us back to square one of how are we supposed to communicate anything and come up with solutions when people don't have the IQ to actually discuss things properly. And I find that like on the internet a lot. It's like you say one thing and they just kind of take it and put it in a different point. And then when you point that out, they just get mad. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, you either want to discuss it or you don't. Like right now, we weren't even talking about the number of people that like went to the convoy. It's just somebody who's
just that they went.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like, why even bring this up right now? And it's crazy. And I find that with like the discussion with Alberta separatism as well, where they're just calling it a small fringe minority. But I've seen these Forever Canadians, and it's like 3 geriatrics and brand new Canadians that arrived like 2 weeks ago, and there's like 10 of them, and you're just like, what is happening here?
Before I forget, I want to mention, you mentioned Trump. So Trump and his standing up for America and some of the unpleasantness that that goes along with that, because it's not a pleasant thing to watch some of the things, but I believe it's necessary. He actually, Canadians were so absorbed by that our conservative potential government here lost a 30-point lead because of an elbows up campaign and gave us another liberal government that had been responsible for some of the worst statistics in Canadian history, like $1.2 trillion in investment capital has fled Canada in the last 16 years. That's under liberal policies. And we elected another one because people were so distracted by Donald Trump and the United States. It absolutely blows my mind. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Alberta independence later, but right now, let's do something really fun. Do you want to share with the folks watching what your view is about what happened with the COVID pandemic and the government's response to it? Do you want to kind of give your theory or what you've put together on that?
Like how the Trump administration or the Canadian government did the
No. Just the whole what's the word? What happened in 2020? What was the story? Like, we were told there's this global pandemic, everybody needs to follow all these rules, and weirdly enough, the rules were all the same for every government in the world. And we were given this narrative. Our media all said the same thing, kind of in lockstep, in tune, in harmony, and sometimes, and it destroyed a lot of people's lives. So we were told this was just something that we have to do because the government knows best, and now we've seen it's something different. So what's your view on what happened, why it happened, and where we are now?
Okay, so actually, this is the reason why I lost my first account on TikTok, is because I pretty much came out and told everyone like what I found on the internet, which was like the dark corners, not the dark web. This stuff was actually like on the regular web that I found. And it basically goes into the fact that Fauci and certain other, I should say, government entities made a virus in China, in Wuhan, that had enhanced abilities to enter cells. And they actually released it in October of 2019 at the military Chinese games, when all of the military members from all around the world were there. And they were hoping that if they infect them, that they would go home and infect their population. And that's how they would actually start the pandemic, which is why they kind of gave it 6-month period to transcend into the rest of the population in those countries that participated in the military games. Well, unfortunate for them, their gain of function research didn't do a good enough job. So people that were sick, they just got sick and then they got over it. I mean, like, it was a bad flu and it didn't really transmit to other people. So then they went on all of the algorithms that they used with the Zika virus, the hantavirus, and all of the other viruses that we have where we had like mini outbreaks. So they took those algorithms and pretty much used those to, simulate how COVID should have been transcending throughout the population. And they already had everything written in stone, how they're going to present it, which was so bad because first of all, they named it the coronavirus, not even thinking about Corona beer and how stupid people are. So then they had to go online and be like, no, not Corona like the beer. Corona beer doesn't give you viruses. It's called Corona because there's little crowns on the spikes. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just said it wasn't isolated. So how do you know what the virus looks like under a microscope? So that was my first clue into, oh shit, this is all freaking like fake. And that was at the very beginning, like 2 days into lockdown when they said that because they were so stupid. And so then I started researching, and then you find like the New York thing that they had right before the pandemic as well. They had a pandemic, I guess, how should I say this? Kind of like play with Bill Gates and all of that and how it would play out and what they should do. Then all of a sudden you have stickers, you have masks, you have PCR tests that are all
ready to go.
Yeah, all ready to go when we're all shut down. You know what I mean? Like, we're all shut down. We don't have the supply and demand. There's truckers sitting at home. There's these people sitting at home. And all of a sudden we have all of this, and every single country is saying the exact same thing. Then after the first vaccine, like in 2021, at the end of 2021, all of a sudden they're like, oh, this country that was like 99.9% vaccinated all of a sudden still has COVID and you still have to be on lockdown. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is basically just to see how far they can push us, how well they can train our brains, and how well we will follow like little lab rats to see if like we will go along with their plans. And unfortunately, we went along way too long, especially in Canada and like Western Europe and Australia. Some countries were just like, no, screw this, we're not doing this, just to kind of see how the population would eventually end up behaving. And so I'm pretty sure that they did a lot of things all in one, not just, giving us a psyop to follow, but also experimenting on us psychologically to see how we would react to certain things. And then they put us in categories based on when you got the vaccine or if you didn't get the vaccine. And so it played out exactly like a movie. And I even told people in the past, each batch is different. That's why certain people only got saline shots and they're not getting any side effects. They're not feeling anything, versus other people that are having nerve damage, versus others that are having myocarditis, versus this. And I even showed the studies that they were doing on these vaccines in Argentina, and I believe there was a university in Brazil that was also doing it. And I got called a liar. And then 6 months after that, they're like, check your batch because maybe we had some bad batches, that caused this. And it's like, no, that batch that you made that caused that, it was on purpose made to do that, and so that way you can't really connect anything back to the vaccine manufacturers because there's so many different variations of it. So the way they played it out was basically just mind control, but it did start off as they were trying to create a real pandemic with the COVID virus that they made in a lab. That's my theory from everything that I've researched. But
yeah, and here in Canada, our very own Dr. David Speaker, he was doing some testing on some of these batches, and he's the one that found the DNA fragments that weren't supposed to be there in these shots, and he went public about this and got absolutely persecuted for it. We had a lot of doctors in Canada and actually in the United States that were speaking up saying, hey, this isn't right. So Dr. David Speaker here was one. Dr. Byron Bridle was another one, a vaccinologist who actually said, you're not doing this right. We shouldn't be applying this to the population. And they lost their tenure, all sorts of things. And they had these major battles in front of them. So from your perspective, how do you mentioned looking at something under a microscope. What do you know about that? You're just a rig worker, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, I know a bunch of people were like, what do you have? You don't have a science degree. It's like, well, neither does Bill Gates. And he's got bigger tits than me. So whatever. But like, I actually have a degree in molecular biology and biochemistry, which is a lot more than what Bill Gates has. And no one's paying me to say a narrative. I'm basically doing this research based on what I know of the knowledge that I learned in school, which is the basics, which everyone takes, no matter which way you go, whether it's virology or this. And so the fact that people were saying, oh, you only have a bachelor's degree, it's like there's Harvard professors, there's MIT professors, there's Stanford doctors saying the exact same thing that I'm saying. And they're also getting silenced, and they paid thousands of dollars to go to these Ivy League schools, and they spent years and years studying this stuff, and they're saying the exact same thing I'm saying, and none of us are getting any money for saying it. So you'd think that adults would clue in, like, hey, Fauci's getting paid to say this. These people are not getting paid to say this. So wouldn't you think that, like, you know what I mean? It's really weird. Like, human beings, I'm learning, are actually extremely weird when they are, in a group of beehive or hive mind.
And after all of this, people are still more willing to say, "Oh, your paper that you have hanging on your wall isn't at the level that I want it to be for the truth you're speaking to be relevant to me." And they're totally ignoring it. And yet we had people in Canada who had fancy pieces of paper on the wall telling everybody how smart they were, that were repeating the same talking points. For me, in I guess it was 2021, they rolled out the vaccines, right? 2021,
Yep.
I guess. Yeah.
2021, yeah.
2021, they started talking about this, and in Alberta, it's like, oh, we need to reach this 70%, and then it'll all be over. And I said, no, it won't. They're going to ask you to do this forever. Because when I was like, I don't know, I was young, 9, 10 years old or something like that. I had a really bad cold or the flu or something, and I said to my mom, why can't they just give us a shot for this in school so that we don't get the flu anymore? And she explained to me, well, because viruses change and they mutate to adapt to things, and they generally get softer on you so they don't damage you. She went through the whole thing. My mom's a real smart lady. And I was like 9 years old when I heard that. And I've remembered that my whole life, all through my high school biology and stuff like that. And we see this in nature all the time. So when they started saying, oh, we'll just do these shots and it'll all be good, I said, no. They're going to tell you that you need to do this forever. It's going to be once a year, then it's going to be once every 6 months, and it's never going to stop. And it hasn't. They're still doing it. They're still rolling them out every 6 months, which coincidentally, every 6 months we have a huge increase in elderly mortality in long-term care facilities. But I mean, the causation isn't or correlation isn't causation, right? So who knows? Anyway, I'm saying this because I'm a dumb roughneck who now owns a restaurant, and I had enough knowledge to know that what we were being fed wasn't accurate. I don't have a degree. I don't have any of that stuff. But it prevented me from making some mistakes that other people made that I know who are now dead. They used to sit in my cafe telling me how, hey, make sure you get all these. It's so dangerous. You got to take all these medical interventions. I was like, no, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't do it. They're dead. I'm not, because of a conversation with my mom.
No, that's actually very true. And it's so weird that people don't understand that when you vaccinate or you add a medicine to anything, that virus will then, in a natural way, is programmed to basically mutate so that medicine cannot be effective, so that it can live. It's like a survival tactic for the virus. And when people were saying, oh, it's because of the unvaccinated that it's mutating, it's like, no, our immune systems pretty much can take a mutated virus and still attack it because it doesn't mutate that well. But you're telling me that you can be ahead of the mutation with a vaccine that is putting more pressure on a virus to mutate and change and survive. It's just wild, because all of this stuff was just in our books. Everybody knew it. Like, it's logical. And I have a feeling that people who have a higher risk taking, I guess, threshold are the ones that didn't take the fear in, and that kind of stopped and thought about it for 2 seconds, versus everybody else that bought into the fear, like loved the fear, ate up the fear. And so their brains were filled with so much fear that they didn't allow themselves for 1 second to just stop and think clearly whether this was real or not. I think that might be like the main playing factor in, whether you have a degree or not have a degree, is higher risk threshold, therefore you're more logical, therefore you take things on a calm stride, and think it through. And that's what they didn't want. That's why they were pumping everything, constant COVID. It's still on. People are dying. It's like, if people were dying, I think I'd see people dying around me. You know what I mean? Because I didn't see anybody dying until the vaccines were rolled out.
Maybe there's two types of people generally. Maybe there's the people who want to believe somebody else is going to save them. They want to believe there's safety offered in compliance. And then there's people that just don't believe that and think that their safety is up to them, thinking critically about the things going on around them. I think, in a nutshell, I think that's it. And I'm one of the people that I don't think someone else is coming to save us. And now what I've realized is, I think for the most part, those in authority positions, they don't just not want to save us. They want to do whatever they can to preserve their own skin and hold on to the power or wealth or whatever that they have now. And it doesn't matter what happens to people around them.
Yeah, that is also definitely a thing. Absolutely. I will agree 100%, because there are people who don't even take responsibility for their own lives, and they would rather the government just lead them like a bunch of sheep that are asleep, because if they fail in life, then they don't have to take responsibility for that. They can just say it was the government, versus other people who actually like taking responsibility for their lives, for their own actions, for their own safety, and they don't like being led down any road, because I feel like I'm a competent adult who can make my own decisions. And I don't need the government, who's half-assed everything for like years now, to tell me what I should do, how I should think, and how I should feel, because they're trying to make that hive mind of freaking idiots. And so one thing I have noticed is a lot of these people are just trying to preserve, I think, their delusion in their own heads, of what they thought life was. And it bothers them that they're waking up. So they're trying to fight that awakening by just staying delusional and ignorant and not really wanting to discuss anything openly, because it hurts their brains and their feelers. They need that, what's that form called? The butthurt report.
The butthurt, yeah.
The butthurt report.
Yeah. You know, I do get it, because it is easier just to, like, if you're going over a cliff in a bus, it's easier to close your eyes and be comfortable until you're gone than it is to like scramble and figure out how you're going to get out of that bus going over the cliff. And I think a lot of people are there. They would just rather, I don't want to talk about it. And they'll do that right to their own demise. You know, I'm not one of those people. You're not either. I'm certainly glad you're not, because I think that you speaking up the way you did, that made a huge, huge difference to the way people received that information. And it started out just in sleepy little Alberta, and then you became this like worldwide phenomenon on some of the biggest podcasts in the world, sharing the truth that people use to make the decisions that kept them safe. So kudos to you for that.
Well, thank you. I actually don't even see it. Like, to me, I go to work on a rig. I get roasted every day. My boss fires and rehires me like 4 times a day. You know what I mean? So they keep me humble. So when you say that I had an impact, I'm like, did I really? I'm like, I just say unhinged shit that's like the truth. And I actually don't even realize that it affects people, or that it, I just know I trigger liberals. And so that makes me happy. But I'm actually glad to hear that I've had a positive impact, in not just in making liberals blood boil, but also a positive impact for like everyone else.
Yeah, 100%. He really did. And, I think some of the stuff you did in the States there on those really huge audiences, which you have a huge audience now too, that even for the people that kind of, they agree generally, but maybe hadn't heard it, it's always nice to hear the truth explained like that. And then all of a sudden you don't feel quite so crazy for believing that truth. So that's another benefit. We should probably get on to the Alberta stuff right now, because this is it's all the same theme. There's a truth, there's a conversation, and then there's people that want to cancel it. And we're experiencing that in Alberta now. I'm about to, I guess in a couple, 4 hours, I leave for Athabasca, which you spent quite a bit of time up in that area, didn't you?
I sure did. Oh, Athabasca oil fields, you betcha.
Yep. So we're heading up there today for a Let's Talk Alberta event. And the goal is we're holding town halls, and I'm sharing my opinion. And my opinion is that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. And then I share some context, and I back up my claim with facts. And I have a couple other speakers. And then we open up the floor to questions or challenges to what we're saying, things like that. hoping that we can have a conversation together with people that oppose us or agree with us, whatever, so that we can have the best outcome in October. Because October 19th in Alberta, we're going to have a referendum, and the question is going to be about Alberta sovereignty. It's not a constitutionally binding thing, but it's an important first step, and we want to make sure that people have the information and get a chance to ask the questions. Some of the things that are used as opposition points to Alberta independence, coming from some politicians who benefit from the current system, they're lying to us. They're gaslighting us. They're telling us we're going to lose all these things. They're telling us, oh, you're, these people are traitors. This is anti-democratic. All of these things are making people believe that the things they believe in make them less than human. So we're trying to change that. Now, are you hearing anything about what's going on in Alberta in the States right now?
No, not Alberta specifically. I do get news from like general Canada, and then I have to put on my VPN and go on my phone that I used in Canada, and I put it onto Wi-Fi just to get my Canadian algorithm so I can see what's going on in Alberta, and I can already see the psyop that they're pushing with morons, like low IQ morons, about pretty much resisting this Alberta independence movement. And they're using the exact same thing that they did during the vaccine, right? Oh, this is just a small fringe minority. They're all uneducated. They're all a bunch of hillbilly rednecks, you know what I mean? So that they paint you in such a negative, low light that if you were to discuss anything and actually have a productive discussion with people, that they immediately have that image. And unfortunately, a lot of these like low IQ people who are mouth breathers will believe that shit. And so, of course, the only thing I see online is, getting called a redneck, a hillbilly. Oh, you're Albertan. It's like, if you don't like us that much, why don't we just leave? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're going to come and like work the Alberta oil fields from Toronto because, you're a soy boy pussy and you can't even like lift 10 pounds. So who the fuck is going to work the oil fields if all Albertans leave for like the United States? So why don't we just take Alberta with us? You know what I mean? And then I also don't understand like the Aborigine point of view. It's like you're calling Canada a colonizing country, but then you're standing with the colonizers to stay in the colony that you've been colonized in instead of having your own freedom, and none of it makes sense. And I think it's honestly the Chiefs like putting bullshit out there, getting money from the Liberals to stay, and as you said, politicians that actually will make money off of the old system to keep themselves afloat, and then once they ruin Alberta, they'll just leave. They'll go somewhere else. And it's just absolutely like bewildering how people can just come out and be like, oh, you're a redneck. Oh, you're a dumbass. And I look at them and I'm like, you literally look like trailer trash. What the fuck are you talking about? Like you're calling people like rednecks and this. Meanwhile, you're in a basement, you pimply faced like fat fuck eating pizzas all the time and bitching at Albertans, not even working, but living off of a welfare system that Albertans like pay into. It's just the wildest thing. It's like being in a narcissistic relationship with a fucking low IQ retard, and you're trying to like tell them, hey, we could have been like the greatest country with the best resources, but you're too stupid. And then they're just like, oh, you're just a hillbilly redneck. And it's like, whatever, dude.
You just painted like the perfect picture for me of some of the trolls. And I don't have a problem with people that challenge the idea. That's great. But what we're finding is people don't want to actually talk about it. They don't want to debate it. I've said I'm willing to have a debate on this with, I don't care if it's just the average Albertan that wants to come to a Let's Talk Alberta event and debate me on something, or if it's Jason Kenney or Thomas Lukasik or Danielle Smith or Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney. I don't care who it is. I don't care what degrees they have. I'll sit on a stage, on a chair, or sit on the stage, on a chair. No, I'll sit on a chair, on a stage, and I'll debate that with them. Right, because I'm not scared of the conversation, and it doesn't matter what degree someone has or doesn't have. As far as I know, even people without degrees or without a high school education, they're Alberta voters and they're Albertans, and their future matters to them. So why should they be excluded from the conversation? And if these people are so much smarter than me or you or anyone that advocates for Alberta, why don't they come here and come to my event and school me? Publicly embarrass me and show people how I'm so wrong. That would be fantastic if they'd take the opportunity to try and do that.
That would actually be amazing. But there are a lot of those out there who don't know how to debate properly, and they truly don't even understand the topics that you're speaking of, and then they go into attacks. Especially like the average, like I've seen some of the pro like Canada people, and it's just like, dude. Like it's just wild, you know what I mean? Like especially one of them, what's his pickle, that like skinny loser with like the teeth, and he looks like he lives in a hobbit hole. He's just fucked. I've seen him like at your guys's like events, and it's the saddest thing to see, because I don't know.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I just can't. He's like kind of like balding at the top, and he thinks he's
Aaron.
smart. Yes, that loser. I totally forgot what his name was, because he was trying to like poke at me because he's trying to build an online thing. He thinks he's an influencer now. So he goes after like all of these bigger influencers, and he tries to get under their skin. And I'm just like, dude, you're not even worth like 2 pennies. But yeah, I've seen that loser, and I've seen like some of the things that he talks about. He has no moral guidance. He doesn't even know what a conservative or a liberal is. And I've noticed that a lot of people like that, in these discussion areas, they truly have no idea what they want. They just want to be against unity of people and having a better life, because then they would have to like actually try in their own lives.
Well, the other part of it is they want to create that drama and divisive, argumentative stuff because they're trying to build a following and a social media channel, and that stuff people want to see it, right? Like the Jerry Springer stuff. So I think that's the thing. They're trying to create content. I create content kind of as a second consequence of my advocacy. I just want to share my opinions and tell people what I think and advocate for a better future. And people follow the channel, and then I create the content comes second. But I think some people really get off on just the dramatic stuff, right? Speaking of content, I saw a video posted on the Forever Canadian Facebook page, and the caption was something like,
Facebook page?
Oh,
I
yeah.
gotta go troll that shit. I gotta go troll that shit with all my fake accounts.
Oh, you'll love this. They put up a video of the Forever Canadian mobile driving down the road, and there's a guy in front waving, and there's people with Canadian flags everywhere cheering. And the caption is, it's from Serena Ma. She's a paid influencer on the stay side. It says, you got to hire this guy if you want to do a parade or event, because he's great at motivating people. So you see the bus, and then the bus kind of goes in off the screen, and then on the other side the bus comes right away, and I was like, that's weird. There's no Alberta flags. It's all Canadian. It's making it look like everybody wants the same thing. And then I noticed the caption on the bottom, created with AI. And then I noticed, oh wait, that's why the bus disappeared off this side and immediately came out on this side. They're making AI generated videos to make it look like the parades are filled with people who want to stay, and everyone's so excited about the red and white maple leaf flag, and they're posting that to try and bring people to their team.
That is so sad. And you know what the weird part is? One thing I have noticed is with the Forever Canadians and the Liberals, it's like they're trying to get all of the people that should be on like short buses, or that were in short buses at schools and that have like caretakers. And they just bring in these people that are like half-brained, barely functioning as a human being. And then they're like, look, these are the Forever Canadians that want to stay. And I'm like, you guys look like a fucking insane asylum on wheels. You know what I mean? Like, please don't. Like, don't represent that as Forever Canada. At least get like 3 people with like a full brain that don't look like they're inbred. You know what I mean? In the Forever Canada. But it's like, that's who they choose because that's who they identify with. If you look at the entire NDP lineup and you line them up, it's like, maybe if you combine all of them, they'd have like 3 brain cells they could rub together and actually come up with a good idea, but they can't. And that's the people that they're going after. It's like these broken, mentally ill, like actually like not okay people. And I can totally see why they need AI and to fake it, just like they had to fake 2020, just like they have to fake every psyop to make it look like there's people behind them, when in reality, every time I've done a pro-Alberta post, it blows up way more than like staying in Canada post does. And I've, watched my algorithm. So that kind of tells me that a lot of people are more pro the separation than they are like staying in Canada as a province.
So to be clear, folks, we're talking about a specific type of person that doesn't want to have a conversation, that's not interested in learning anything. And I reject those types of people because what they're doing is it's so offensive to freedom and democracy. Like, look at it this way. In Alberta, we're going to get asked a question about self-determination. That in itself is absolutely amazing to be offered as a people. It doesn't matter where you are. And if you think about examples across history, some of the places that did that got that question of self-determination finally to the people, they had to fight wars for like decades or sometimes hundreds of years to get it. And Alberta is going to get offered that on a silver platter. All we have to do is get off the couch and go to a ballot box and put a mark on a piece of paper, read the instructions, because they'll reject your ballot if you do it wrong. Because of that, because of the sacrifices that people have had to make to get that, I believe we have a moral obligation to converse about this and find out the facts and set aside our emotions and really focus on the question and what it means for us and our families, right? And if someone's going to go and just try and belittle someone instead of having the conversation, that is super, super offensive. And I think we should actually report that to the Edmonton police.
That's actually badass. Play their game the way they play pretty much their hurt feelings, and how, everything that hurts my feelings is just the worst. I honestly, that is an excellent way. That, I think what you just said there is perfect. You play the game that they play, you know what I mean? And so, yeah. I did the guy shirt. He's awesome. Oh, awesome. Honestly, like the consultants that like we found, I'm so grateful that we found them, because our like first lawyer abandoned us halfway through.
Do you want to just quickly expand on what that's all about? I know what it is, but I want to make sure people know if they're interested.
Oh, okay. I had a podcast because a bunch of people were asking me how to move to the United States. So I asked the consulting group that I was using if they want to do a podcast to explain to my audience how they can come down and that they can use like their lawyers and all of that stuff. And so he kind of came on the podcast, pretty much kind of explained how other visas work, because I'm only familiar with the E2 visa because that's what we're on. So I don't really know all the different types of visas that are out there. So we had a huge podcast, and a bunch of people have signed up with them, actually. There's 5 families that already came down to the States from last year's podcast with them. So that's what this is about. And I'm actually really glad to hear, because they're doing a fantastic job like for us. So I'm glad to hear that they're actually extending that level of care to everybody that has signed up.
So on that topic, how do people get in touch with you or find out more about that?
I have a thing in my link tree, and it's called Bridge Consulting, and then click on there and you guys can talk to them. I don't have anything to do with their side. I just figured I'd give them promote them on my page because they did such a good job like with all of our stuff. And so if anyone's thinking about leaving Canada or wanting to just see what options you have, they do a 15-minute free thing just to see if you have options of coming down, so that they're not like charging you money just to tell you that you don't really have a chance, or that there is no way, or that you need about like a year or 2 to get down. So they pretty much kind of like vet you straight off the bat, and then they'll let you know like, hey, you actually have a way of getting down here. If you want our services, then let's talk further. So if you guys want to find that, just go to my link tree, look for Bridge Consulting, or it's move the number to the USA.com. So move to the USA.com, but the 2 is a number.
So these guys, they're not like the guys in India that told these students they could go to Canada, get their schooling, and then they're guaranteed a job and citizenship afterwards. And now they're sitting and protesting because they're not getting the jobs they were promised by the people charging $50,000. Different
exactly thing. Yeah, these are legit US lawyers, because I've heard nothing but nightmares about using Canadian lawyers to get into the States. These are US lawyers. It's a US company. They know their laws. They know what Homeland Security is looking for. They know what USCIS is looking for. And so like they are so on top of everything and like so knowledgeable, versus like the Canadians are almost like the Indian lawyers, where they'll just overcharge you like $30,000, tell you that you can come down, and then they just eat your money, and not really give you any results. So and we've been screwed over, as well, like twice. So I didn't want other people to be screwed over. So that's why I asked them, I'm like, hey, if you guys want me to do a podcast, a bunch of people are asking how we did it. There you go. You got business and I've got content. So, and I
Nice.
answer people's questions, right? So
Lawyers do love our money, as I've seen.
oh, they really do. Yeah. Trust me, especially the ones that screwed me over and left me like, out to dry. So whatever, you
Yep.
live, you learn, right? But as long as other people are making the same mistakes and not wasting their money, like, that's all I can do from my end, I guess.
Speaking of being screwed over, not necessarily by lawyers, but by people who benefit from systems. This is something I wanted to talk about with you as well. Cheryl says, apparently there are ads to advertise a Edmonton communist summer school, which is organized by the Revolutionary Communist Party.
I saw that. And they have them in the United States too, except in the United States, the president, like Trump, is actually calling them out. President Trump is calling them out. And he's saying that they need to be put in place and capped, because once you allow this to happen, a lot of people will think like communists are like, fucking idiots. Who's going to actually go and hear this? But slowly they grow in the dark and they cultivate like mushrooms and fungus. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're kind of infiltrating the government slowly. And these are the groups that work quietly in the shadows that you really need to watch out for. So like that there's communists in Edmonton already, and that they're building a group is already scary enough. And so the more exposure that is given to this group, the more people will know exactly what their plans are, and they will get kiboshed. Pretty much how everything else with, telling the truth and exposing it out for everybody goes.
So how did we go from, report to commie, stamp out communism, people fleeing communist countries in Eastern Europe, the fall of communism in countries in Eastern Europe, to Edmonton, Alberta, holding communist summer school in the open, advertising in the newspaper, on Facebook and billboards?
Sorry, how is it that communists can do that?
How did we go from that? How did we go from the report a commie, like get rid of communism, we're trying to spread democracy, the fall of communism in Eastern Europe, to advocating for that type of shithole here in Canada? How do we go from one extreme to the other like that?
Years of subversion and psyop. So we went from the Cold War to, report a communism is bad, to you just have to wait for 1 or 2 generations to be born so that you can psyop it in there. And then as certain people age, and they realize that responsibility is a thing and that being an adult is actually not that easy, they're looking for ways out, right? So they're like, oh, capitalism, that's my problem. That's why I'm poor. It's like, is it? Or is it because you're bad at managing money and not working like enough and all of this stuff? Or some people will be like, oh, it's because capitalism because of this, and then all of a sudden, if you even put an idea out there, it's like a seed. It will eventually slowly grow as people, look at their own lives and they go, oh man, this is hard. How can we solve this? And people are like, oh, here's communism. Here's a fairy tale of everybody will be equal. You don't have to compete. You don't have to have any sort of human competition. And everyone will just live like, lords and gods and like rich people. And, somehow it will all magically pay for itself. And so these people take that and they go, well, no, that's a great idea. So it literally, all it takes is just a couple of generations to pass, couple of hard times to be, implemented into society. And all of a sudden you slowly get this, why don't we try communism again? It's like, my guys, it's never worked. But they also have like answers for that, because they're like, it's never been implemented correctly. And that's because they don't really factor in human behavior and factors into how humans behave. That's why, like, I don't know, communism will never be implemented properly on paper, and it doesn't work even if it was implemented properly on paper, because you can't have everybody eating, being lazy, and nobody working. Like, it just doesn't work. It's not a balanced system, and everything in the universe needs to have a balance. And so I legitimately don't understand these people, but if you look at them, they're all failed and low IQ. They're like the NDP and the Forever Canadians that they try and bring in. They're all a little, like, you can tell in their face that they're a little slow. You know what I mean?
So I would agree that most of them are like that. I think that there's a few that genuinely think there's some problems that could be solved with that. Now, you have an interesting perspective that many don't have about heavily, socialistic places. Do you want to kind of share a little bit about your history and why you recognize the failed path?
Well, everyone in Eastern Europe, whether you're from like a hardcore communist country or like lighter communist country, was taught about communism. So I'm from former Yugoslavia, which was a socialist communist country during Tito. And then when Tito died, it kind of all just slowly started to like melt. And that's because he had control over everything. He did not allow that control to anybody else so that it could be balanced. So the minute he passed away, there was no system in place to keep it going, because the one dude, the dictator, usually the guy in charge, and I mean, Yugoslavia was never a hardcore communist country, but it had very deep communistic issues that are also brought up in other countries, such as, Russia, you've got East Germany, you've got China, you've got North Korea. And we were taught how North Korea went from a Japanese imperial country and how communism was implemented there, and the stories that they needed to tell in order to make the Kim family seem like gods. Same thing in China when they first introduced it. Same thing in the USSR. And so there's an actual book out there on step by step on how to create a communistic country from scratch once it's completely like demolished, and the stories that you need to give people in order for it to stick. But eventually people start questioning these things, and then it fails. But usually that's where millions and millions of people die. And so all of us in the Eastern Bloc were taught this, like by our parents, by our grandparents, by, just kind of having lived through that. And so when you share stories with other people who were in actual real like communist countries, like for their duration of their life, they can see the similarities of how it was implemented in their countries to how it's being implemented in Canada, Western like Europe, and Australia. And so when you try and warn people, you're warning them from actual experience and knowledge and stories that you've heard. And it almost seems impossible to, I guess, shake some people up and make them realize that, hey, this is from experience. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is because you're going to look exactly like the USSR, like before the fall.
So I think there's a few ingredients that are necessary. The first one is people have to be primed to believe that someone else is going to save them, whether that's a leader or government or whatever. And then the people have to experience something that makes them need saving. Oh, I can't afford a house. My groceries are too expensive. I can't afford to heat my house. Diesel is $2 a liter right now. It cost me $850 to fill up this bus yesterday. So they have to be put in a situation where there's something they need to be saved from. And then they have to be willing to not think critically about what the solution is and rely on their training to believe someone's going to save them, to advocate for that. And we're seeing that more and more and more in Canada. And we're seeing that around conversation about Alberta independence. I get well, what about this? What about my CPP? What about my OAS? What about these entitlements? What if I don't get this money? What if the government doesn't take care of me? And I'm like, guys, there's going to be a government, and the government would, of course, have to maintain those things. But think about the opportunity that Alberta has to actually be involved in the policies and the laws that govern them. Like, this is the real opportunity, but people are so focused on the who's going to save me or who's going to take care of me that they're actually scared to do something different. And that's the biggest challenge we have with Alberta independence right now. And that's what the other side is using. Fear. Oh, if you support Alberta independence, businesses are going to leave. You're going to lose your pension. You're going to lose your citizenship. You won't be able to go to Niagara Falls anymore. All of these things which are untrue. And people are buying it.
That's the one thing I've noticed is they will always pump fear, because fear, as I said, even during 2020, doesn't allow you to just stop and critically think. And a lot of people are, like you said, they want the government to save them because they don't know how to save themselves. And I find it like super, super weird that these people have actual lives. Like they pay their mortgage or rent or whatever every single month. And it's like, how do you even wake up and tie your shoes, my guy? Because all you want to do is constantly ask the government for help. And I don't think people look at the positives. They're just so scared of the change. They're like, what if we make this step and then it all goes, array? And it's like, it's already doing that. And Canadian companies will keep leaving under the Liberal government. They will keep leaving to the point where they're actually thinking about holding their own citizens hostage with an exit fee. That is how desperate the Canadian government has gotten. And I don't think people realize just how desperate the Canadian government is to keep this image that everything is fine, considering people are leaving in droves, companies are leaving in droves, corporations are leaving in droves. You've got I should not say brain rot, but you've got like brain drain leaving Canada. And so they are now in a panic, and they're bringing in like third world whoever, whatever. Like they're not even vetting anybody. And I honestly don't care what your skin color is. Like you can come from Bosnia, but if you're not vetted, you can be a complete piece of shit and a criminal to Canada, and you won't actually, be a productive citizen of that country. And so you can tell that they're panicking. And I think that if that was exposed, the level of panic that the Canadian government actually has with Alberta leaving and Quebec leaving, then I think some of these ding dongs will actually think a little bit and be like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. If they're scared that we're leaving, that means it's going to be better for us, and we're being milked right now for their benefits, for like the Liberal government's benefits instead of for the people. Because if Alberta went like independent, you could literally be as powerful as Dubai.
100%. We have what we need. We have the people. We have the will. We have the tenacity. Of course, it could be done. I really hope that we get. Just 1 second. I really hope that we get more people coming to our Let's Talk Alberta events to have these conversations and talk about these things, because at the core of all of this is the idea that Albertans can decide. Albertans, we don't have to rely on a prime minister. We don't have to rely on a monarch. We don't have to rely on that. We can do these things ourselves. There's dozens of countries smaller than Alberta that do these things successfully. Many of them are landlocked and they make trade deals. We have this huge opportunity in front of us, and we got to talk about it. This meeting in Athabasca, I think it's going to be great tonight. I think there's going to be some First Nations people show up and asking some questions, which is great. And by the way, folks, if you want to know kind of my position on some of these things, and you don't want to go through a bunch of podcasts to hear it, go to whistlestoptruckstop.ca/blog, and all of my stuff, my thoughts, my opinions, I put it in the form of blogs. I put 2 up yesterday. One was about why politicians seem to be against the idea of Alberta independence. And there's some real, it's kind of an expose on some of our current politicians right now and why they're advocating against this opportunity for Alberta. I suggest you read that. Some of you aren't going to like what I say, but I'm going to say it anyway. And the other one that I put up is just a kind of a general framework about Alberta independence and why I believe it's necessary and inevitable. And there's a whole bunch of other ones on there. And with the at the Let's Talk Alberta events, we have a number of different trifolds with some information, question and answer, myths and debunk, First Nations. We have a whole booklet on First Nations and treaties and that. So please attend an event, pick it up, or find one from a volunteer in your area. The link to my blog. Yeah, I'll post the link to my blog. While I'm doing that, where do people find you? Same place? Is it Truthseeker 101? Do you have that back or?
Yeah, if they either Google Truthseeker 01011 or just like Tajana, which is how you spell my name but not pronounce it. And if you just go Google it, you're either going to get to one of my pages. All of my like actual pages, because there's a bunch of fake ones out there, have a blue check mark. And I did that because there are so many fake pages out there. So you can either get to it by Googling it. You'll get it from a hate page or a fan page or just on Google. That's how I kind of tell people to go find me, because I'm all over the place. Like I've got a Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and a Rumble. Or if you find my page, go to my link tree, and then you can see exactly which are my pages, because I don't have double pages on any of those social media platforms.
So what's your page?
Truthseeker 01011, or just type in Tajana, my name. Because I think on Facebook I had to use my actual name because it had to reflect like my documents. So
Honestly, if you Google her name, you'll find her. You can't not find you. There's so much.
Oh, really? I haven't Googled myself in a while, because like sometimes I'll get to like somebody having a fight with me and I didn't even know. Like there's videos out there of people claiming I blocked them, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know who you are. I've never talked to you in my entire life. And it's like, okay.
I get that a little bit too. I actually, so I did a video making fun of the chemtrail cult, as I call it. And I do believe something's going on upstairs that we need to deal with, but I don't believe people are pressing buttons. Anyway, people kept on, this conversation was very emotional for people. And I was getting death threats and all sorts of stuff. I made this video, basically a satire, like, look, I can create something on the internet that's fake and people will believe it. Everyone believed it. It got 4 million views. And then people started sending me clips of my own video to prove what they were saying was true. And I was like, that's me. Like, you're sending me videos of myself doing a satire exposing that everything on the internet isn't real. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I love that. Oh.
Yeah, I still get people sending me that video. But you know what?
Awesome.
That's just one more thing we have to talk about. We have a problem in our skies, 100%. Things aren't the way they used to be. We have weird, gross things happening. There needs to be a solution. We need to fix it. But I think somebody is taking the jar of ants and shaking it so that we all just like want to kill each other instead of focusing on the solution. So
exactly. And I actually said this on a podcast yesterday. I know there's a lot of infighting. I totally see that, especially on the conservative side. Now, some of it is ego based on popularity, because certain people just can't like take their own like emotions and control them. But a lot of it is also brand new awakened people who aren't sure who to trust right now, because they woke up during such a volatile time when so many lies were being spread. So most of this infighting that you're seeing is actually people waking up. And I know it seems chaotic, and I can totally see that people think, oh, this movement is over. But the one thing we all still have in common is we know liberals are fucking idiots. You know what I mean? And so at least we have that as a guide to like whatever you kind of ask, feel, or whatever, and people are fighting and asking, hey, you know what, that's good, because at least people are asking questions. They're not believing everything so blindly. They're checking in on the information that is being told. And so I almost see like the infighting as a positive thing in one ways, not the ego-based losers who are online just trying to start shit because they want a popularity contest. But I'm seeing a lot of people who are now awakened and asking a lot of questions, and it's just going to take time for their discernment to be refined, so that they know who to trust and who not to trust, and not have such emotional reactions to everything. And we just kind of have to battle it through that infighting that's happening and the emotional outbursts, and just keep a cool, calm head and try and word things so that it kind of clicks in these people's minds, and kind of get through the fear and the psyop that they have filled their brains with, in order to actually get to their logical thinking side.
So do you think that maybe when there's an issue that's dividing people and making them fight about something, that there's probably something else that people should be looking at, instead of this little divisive thing? I really believe that there's some people that want to impose things on us, that their whole job is to get us to fight about the minute little details so that we ignore the massive shift to the New World Order or something.
You cut out, and I only heard a little bit. You said something about liberals. Sorry, you cut out.
I said, do you think that some of these smaller details that people fight about are intentional? Like, it's someone's job to keep us fighting about these small things, so we ignore the big things like Mark Carney ushering in the New World Order with China?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It definitely is. Like all of the little infighting, and then people going after each other, or people going after this influencer to try and get this. It is on purpose. So I know I get called like paid opposition a lot. I'm like, but if you look at my stuff, I never go after other influencers. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to keep everybody focused on the New World Order, this. And then you have all of these people just trailing off with these little details. And I'm like, why are we talking about that? Because when we were united, which was during 2020, or 2022 during the trucker protest, when we were all united under one goal, and that was the tyranny of the government. Look how scared Justin Trudeau was. Look how badly they mismanaged that situation out of their own fear and out of their own panic, that they pretty much exposed all of their plans. And that is why they want us, you know, fighting over little details and this and this and this and this and that, and like, oh, this person just lied, or that person. It's like, who cares? We've got one goal, and the goal is them versus us, you know, not each other versus each other and whoever said mispronounce or miss whatever. And it's just you are right, there is definitely a bigger thing at play, so that we keep you know, infighting, so that we can't have that focused goal again like we did in 2022.
Yep, nobody's perfect. Nobody's coming to save you. If you're looking for somebody who's perfect that will save you, his name is Jesus of Nazareth, and we nailed him to a cross. So you're not going to find that in people. People are fallible. Exactly. So I guess if we look past each other's failings and focus on the goal, we probably have a better chance of success. But it's not common to see that happen.
That's very true. That's very true. Unfortunate, but I kind of always say, when it comes to push and shove, like at the end, I think a lot of people will wake up and will stick together again like we did in 2022.
Well, either way, things are going to happen the way they're supposed to. I think there's a capital P plan by a capital G God, and we just got to do the best we can and stay on the straight and narrow, wear our opinions on our sleeve boldly, and don't worry about what other people say. And if we do that, no matter what happens, if we're all in jail for sharing our opinions, then at least we'll have good company, right?
Oh, man, re-education camp is going to be so lit. Like, it's going to be all of us cool people, and then we can make fun of the teachers that are trying to, like, re-educate us, and we can actually, like, do reverse psychology on them, and then we can totally take over the re-education camp. I'm telling you, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be like camp, but, like, way more fun.
And free.
And free, right? I could use some days off.
Yeah. How's things going? You're like terribly busy down there, hey?
Oh yeah, like we've been busy nonstop, and we don't have enough people, and especially with like the gas prices being this high, even though it's just at the pump and not actually on the stock market, we have a lot of overtime. So instead of doing like 28-day hitches, it turns into like 45-day hitches with still 2 weeks off and stuff. So wow. Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm like trying to run my page. I don't have assistants. I don't have shit. Like, it's just me, myself, and and we're just freaking winging it. And then I work night shift, and then I nap throughout the day. But thankfully I'm on days off, or what was supposed to be days off, but I had to work this morning. So it is what it is.
Right on. Well, you're living the dream. I definitely miss that life. I wouldn't give up the whistle stop for really any, well, I shouldn't say anything, but there's very little that I would give up the whistle stop for. One of the things is waking up in my office and opening the window and looking at a rig again. I really miss that, but you know, maybe that'll be my retirement job.
I know the feeling, because anytime I leave the rigs, all I think about is the rigs. Even though I tell my boss I'm quitting every single hitch, I know I'm never going to quit that job. You know, it's just, there's something that gets into your blood once you're in the oil field that you cannot get out of. So I totally understand what you're saying. Yep.
All right, well, 20 after 11, I guess I've probably taken up enough of your time, and I want you to be able to enjoy your little days off you have. So thank you very much for spending time with me again. I'm looking forward to seeing what the clips turn out from this, because I think there's going to be some real juicy ones. And just one more time, for the people that missed it, if they want to find you, I know they could just Google your name and there's going to be 1,000 pages come up, but where's the best place for them to go to find you?
Go on Facebook and type in Tajana or Tajana at Cekic, or Truthseeker 01011. And as I said, my actual ones, not the copycats, all have a blue check mark. And I made sure so that people don't think that I reach out to them or scam them or, you know, other things. So if you want to find me, Google it. You can find me literally everywhere. I post every single day almost on Facebook, Instagram, and X.
I missed an A in your name. I gotta do it again now. Did I get it right? No. Man, I can't type anything.
You know what? Honestly, that's why everyone calls me TJ. Like
There we
on
go.
and everywhere. So yeah.
Did I get it right?
Oh yeah, that's good. It's awesome.
Okay. There you go. That's refined.
No, I want to thank you again for having me on. I always love being on your show because Alberta, you know what I mean? Oil field, we pretty much had the same things and said the same things throughout these years. So I'm always glad to be back. And I honestly can't wait to be back in Alberta, and maybe we can do this in person.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and we got a lot of events and a lot of people that are really interested in hearing some truth, whether it's a nice truth or a hard truth. People want to hear it. So
awesome! And if you guys ever want to put me on a prompter at one of your events, let me know. I'm totally down.
Cool, right on.
I'll do it from my truck.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to go and install some more security cameras at the Whistle Stop Cafe because people are getting crazy. And then I'm going to fire up this big, beautiful Alberta bus. I'm going to send you a picture of it after.
Ooh, nice.
And we're going to head up to Athabasca. So if you're in the area of Athabasca, we'll be there tonight. Starts at 7 p.m.-ish. Doors open at 6:30. I can't remember the address. You can find it at letstalkalberta.com. Tomorrow we're in Vermilion, same time. Again, look at the website for the address. And then St. Paul is the following day, although I had to withdraw from that one because I have an event this weekend, and I need that Thursday to prepare the Whistle Stop food truck for that. So you'll find me in this weekend in Rimbey at Rock the Track, slinging turkey legs and hamburgers and hot dogs out of the Whistle Stop food truck. And other than that, we'll be back with the live from Athabasca tonight, Vermilion tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be back with Tajana sooner rather than later, and hopefully in person sooner rather than later. So we'll keep tabs on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for listening to my dumb ass. I'm just kidding.
All right. Take care. Say hi to the mister for me.
Will do for sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Wait, where is she? Here she is. There we go. Meow.
Thank you.